This is what industrial food ingredients are. They're perfect building blocks. Hi, I'm Natasha, the snack mechanic, and I'm here to help you understand food. Today I wanted to talk about ultra-processed food. And I'm just going to do this very casually and yap about it because I feel like talking about food and learning about food should be easy, and I just like to yap about food. Also, I'm here without glasses because I thought the glare in my glasses was really bad the last couple of times that I filmed, so I just thought I'll just try it without glasses. Anyway, what is ultra-processed food? Okay, so to define ultra-processed food, we must first define not processed food, unprocessed food. Because the amount that food is processed isn't black and white, it's a spectrum, and it has a lot of gray in the middle. In the mid 1900s to early 2000s, scientists started to discover a correlation between obesity and ultra-processed food consumption in Brazil specifically, because that's where the scientists were looking at that time. And to be able to research this correlation, they needed to have a way to define ultra-processed food. You need to be able to define everything exactly and able to prove your hypothesis. These researchers came up with the NOVA classification. And the NOVA classification is a classification that groups food into 4 different categories. Category 1, unprocessed food. These are the parts of plants, animals, fungi, and algae that are edible. It's just straight from the earth, straight from the animal. You can just eat it or prepare it right away. But this is not including sugar, fat, oils, or salt that is added to the food. This category, which is unprocessed, can be modified by removal of certain parts, so like cutting off the fat or cutting out the bone or cutting off the stem of a broccoli. It can also be crushed, dried, ground up, pasteurized, or fermented, and it's still considered unprocessed food because the changes that are made to the food are very simple and small. Examples of this category include frozen fruits, vegetables, grains, legumes, fresh meats, eggs, plants, yogurt, and crushed spices. Then we have category 2. These are processed culinary ingredients. These are all group 1 foods, but they underwent a process to extract a certain ingredient out of them. These are processes such as pressing, refining, grinding, milling, and drying, but you do this in order to extract a certain ingredient. So for example, butter is an extraction of the fat from milk. So butter is a category 2 food, and crushing seeds and nuts gets you seed and nut oils, or crushing olives gets you olive oil. These are all processes that help you extract a certain part of a food and then gain an ingredient. But these again are very simple processes that you could also do in your own kitchen. Often category 2 foods are used to season or flavor or cook with category 1 foods. And if you do that, then you get a category 3 food. A category 3 food is a combination of multiple 1 and 2 foods. So for example, that would be cheese, because you have to add salt to the milk in order to make cheese. Or canned vegetables, or salted nuts, or a jam made with sugar, or canned fish, or bread, or pastries made in your own kitchen. Some meat products fall into this group if they are predominantly a whole meat with salt added, but something that does not fall into this group are sausages, for example, because those are an example of group 4 foods, and group 4 foods are ultra-processed foods. And this is where a lot of confusion starts for people, because when people are referencing ultra-processed foods, sometimes they say processed foods, and then people say, oh, but processed foods aren't that bad because canned fish and cheese and salted vegetables and salted nuts and all those types of food are processed. Yes, but they're not ultra processed. And most of the time when someone says that processed food isn't good for you, they are referring to group 4 foods or ultra processed foods. What are ultra processed foods? Ultra processed foods are industrially manufactured food products made of several ingredients, which we call formulations, and often contain more than 5 of these ingredients. They include sugar, oils, fats, and salt, generally in combinations that are higher than in processed foods, so group 3. And then they are combined with colors, emulsifiers, flavorings, and other additives that make them more pleasurable to eat. They're often made with techniques that are industrial, so extrusion, molding, pre-frying, etc. And these food substances and ingredients cannot be found in a standard kitchen. Group 1 foods are often not even found in group 4 foods anymore. And now you're thinking, but I thought a corn chip was made out of corn. Well, yes, and we'll get to that in a little second. But most of the time, group 1 foods are unrecognizable in ultra-processed group 4 foods. It is true that ultra-processed foods have a generally poorer nutritional quality compared to non-ultra-processed foods. But we have to remember that the degree of processing and nutritional quality of foods are 2 different complementary health dimensions of food. We will talk about nutritional value and nutritional quality of food in a different video, but for now we're just focusing on the amount of processing a food has gone through. But why is food engineered? Well, this is something that I find very interesting because you hear people talking about your food being engineered, and I find that it is never explained why that is the case. My colleagues and I didn't go to school to be able to formulate dangerous food products just because we wanted to do bad in the world or something scary like that. Most of the time, food engineers, food scientists, and food designers are very passionate people that have a passion for science and for food, and they love to cook and they love to create processes and create products because they have a passion for science and food. The reason why food is engineered is actually a lot more simple than people might imagine. There's 2 things coming together. We need food as humans. Our brain is wired for it because we need it for our survival. When we eat a certain combination of fat, salt, and sugar, our brain floods our system with dopamine. Because in the olden days, that meant that we worked hard hunting, gathering, and preparing a hearty meal. And it was important for our brain to reward us for that hard work, because that is how we survived in a world in which food was scarce and meals were hard work. But in the world we live in today, food is not only nourishment, but food is also a product. It is easy to sell a product to a population that needs it, you would think. And that's true. But in this world, there are so many food companies and there is so much choice. And all these companies are competing for your money and they want you to be the one to buy their product over and over and over again. Of course, every business wants to make money. That's why they exist. Well, humans have this thing, and especially with food, we like consistency, we like predictability, we like efficiency, and we like pleasure. So what do companies do to make you pick their food and spend your money on their product? They pay food engineers and food scientists and food designers and a whole bunch of other people to spend their 9 to 5 making their product consistent, predictable, easy to eat, and pleasurable. Okay, that's clear, but why does that result in ultra-processed food? Well, okay, I like analogies, so I'm going to explain this in the way that I see this in my head, and I hope that you get it. Think of cooking as building a house. Only in your kitchen, you're building your house with materials that you can find in nature. So you have to gather rocks from mountains and you have to gather wood from trees and you have to hack it up just with your little axe and saw. And then you have to gather straw to build your roof. And it's a whole process. You have to get mud to pack your roof, and your house will look very irregular and kind of like bumpy and lumpy and weird in some places. And it'll be a great house. You'll enjoy that house, but you will never be able to replicate that house again. If you build another house with the natural materials that you have and have to gather, the house will also be great and will probably look a little bit weird, but it will be a nice house. But it will not look the same as the other house. The floor will also be a little bit bumpy and maybe you didn't find the same stones, but it's a house and it will do. So, companies are also trying to build a house. How do they make this process more consistent, more predictable, and more efficient? They standardize the whole process to create a consistent, predictable, and efficient house. You need to first create consistent, predictable, and efficient building blocks. And how do you build those building blocks? You take those natural ingredients and you extract the exact shapes that you need to build that house. And then when you have taken those materials, you have extracted the perfect shaped bricks, you have taken the mud and you have shaped it into perfectly stackable roof tiles, you've taken straw and you have made, I don't know, something. You take those naturally sourced materials and you make perfect building blocks. The houses that you build with these materials will be perfect and they will all look the same. They will be perfectly replicable. You can explain how to make them to different people because all the blocks will be the same and the steps will be pretty much the same, and it's all very consistent and predictable and efficient. This is what industrial food ingredients are. They're perfect building blocks. They are made by chemically, mechanically, or enzymatically breaking down natural ingredients, naturally inconsistent food, into perfect, consistent building blocks that are then structured by a food designer into perfect little structures. And then, because these perfect little structures are so efficient to build, that food designer can focus all their attention on making this structure taste perfect. Make this structure dissolve in your mouth at the perfect rate. Make it crunch just loud enough. Make it just hard enough to bite through. Make it just sweet enough, with just the right amount of salt, fat, and sugar to let your brain do that dopamine thing that it does. And then a food engineer designs a process to make this structure 10 million different times. And all those different times will come out the exact same way. And if it doesn't, you have the quality department to find out why. But that's a whole other different story. So that's what your corn chip, your hot dog, your snack cake, your soft drink is. They're perfect little structures, and they're made by using science to create a process that is perfectly replicable and perfectly consistent and easy to eat and easy to make. And you're gonna pick that structure because it speaks to your brain. You want something that's consistent, that's predictable, and something that's easy and pleasurable. It's not you being weak, it's just human nature. And honestly, that's why I make these videos, because I think that half the battle is being aware of what you're being sold. It's okay to buy a product, but you have to be aware that you're buying a product, right? I feel like that's the bare minimum. So why should you care? That's a good question, and it's very hard to explain, and there's a lot of science that has a lot of things to say about this, but I can keep it really, really simple. On average, you have about 2,500 calories to spend in a day. Okay, let's say spend. And you need to spend those calories eating food that gives you energy, vitamins, minerals, proteins, fats, all the different building blocks that your body needs to keep going. So see it as different bars. You have these different bars that you have to fill. And all the types of food that you can eat, they have different values and they fill those bars up with different values. It's like when you take a combination potion in a game that gives you mana and health. Well, some potions have more mana than health and some have more health than mana. When you eat an ultra-processed food, usually ultra-processed foods are more energy dense than nutrient dense. So what happens if you eat a diet based on ultra processed food is that your energy bar is going to be full pretty quickly. And then when your energy bar is full, the rest of your nutrient bars should also be pretty full. That's what your body needs. But because ultra processed food is so energy dense and so low nutrient dense, you end up spending those 2,500 calories on foods that gave you the energy that you needed, but did not give you the nutrients that you needed. And your body is really smart. Your body senses that it has deficiencies and it will start asking you for more food. So then you eat more and you'll probably eat more ultra processed food, and then your energy bar is getting stacked up super high, much higher than your body needs. And then finally somewhere your nutrients are filled. And trust me, it takes a lot of ultra processed food to reach the nutrient levels that you need in a day. I don't even know if it's humanly possible to do that. But that's a different story. So your energy bar gets stacked up so high, and then finally your body's like, oh, okay, I have all the nutrients bars filled enough. I can stop eating. Well, you have all this extra energy. Your body's very good at storing extra energy as body fat. And that is, simply put, the reason why you should care. You're giving your body much more than it asked for in one area, and giving it so little of what it needs in nutrient value. And that's something that we should care about, because I assume that you want to take care of your body and you want to feel good. Having all your nutrient bars filled up, that feels good, right? Makes you feel energetic, makes you feel happy, makes your hormones work as they should. I don't know. I feel like I don't even have to explain why you would have to fill up your nutrient bars, right? Anyway, how do you recognize ultra-processed food? I made a little tool because it's actually very simple, but I feel like you have to have like the system in your head. This is Snack Mechanics Is It Ultra-Processed Flowchart. Let's walk through it. Question 1. Is it more than one ingredient? Is the answer no? Then it's not an ultra-processed food. Is the answer yes? Then the next question is it more than 5 ingredients? No. Is it all ingredients that you would find in a kitchen, like water, butter, honey, fruits, vegetables, whole grain, salts? So basically this question is referring to category 2 foods, combinations of ingredients and whole foods. If the answer is yes, then it's still not an ultra-processed food. Then we go back to, is it more than 5 ingredients? Is the answer yes, then you ask yourself, does it contain any of the following? Flavoring, colorant, emulsifiers, sweeteners, preservatives, thickeners, texturizers, bulking agents, or high fructose syrup? If the answer is yes to any of those questions, then yes, it is an ultra-processed food. Are you not sure because you don't recognize the ingredients, or you're not entirely sure if an ingredient is a thickener or not? Well, then you go to the next part, not sure. Does it contain any other ingredient that you don't recognize or wouldn't normally find in a kitchen? If the answer to that question is yes, then it's most likely an ultra-processed food. If the answer to this question is no, then you ask yourself again, is it all ingredients that I would find in a kitchen, like water, butter, honey, fruits, vegetables, whole grains, or salt? Well, then it's not an ultra-processed food. You can have foods that contain more than 5 ingredients that are still not ultra-processed foods if they are foods that are all made up of category 1 and category 2 foods. So say you have a fresh fruit salad that is made up of apples and watermelon and mango and pears and bananas, and then you add a little bit of sugar and you add a little bit of crushed chilies. Well, you've got 7 ingredients. They don't contain any additives that we just mentioned. It doesn't contain any foods that you don't recognize or don't have in your kitchen. And it contains all ingredients that you would find in your kitchen. So then you're back at, yes, it's not an ultra-processed food. So that's just a little system that I came up with to figure out if the food that you are buying or have in your cupboard is ultra-processed. And that's not to say that every ultra-processed food is bad, but I do think that it's important to consider that Basing your entire diet on ultra-processed food is dangerous and it will not give you the nutrients that you need in the day to thrive. Anyway, I can yap about this for so long, but I feel like I've made my story pretty clear for this week. If you have any suggestions on things you would like to see for next week, or maybe you have more questions, or I don't know, if you want to interact with me in any way in the comments, I would love to talk to you guys about this. I want to hear what you guys have to say. I'm very passionate about food and food ingredients. And I hope to find people that want to learn more and want to yap about food just as much as me. So I hope you enjoyed this video and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!